The human mind is a wonderful thing. We readily train ourselves to think about certain things. And we also understand that thinking about certain things is good. And we also understand that at times we have to compartmentalize. We have to understand that sort of, have I locked the front door? Have I locked the front door? When you turn your car around from wherever you're going, you come back, invariably, you've always locked the front door. But that nagging doubt in your mind is always there. There are things that you now, if you thought about in your life and spent a good kind of hour pondering on, you probably struggle to function because you'd be worried. There are things that we compartmentalize, that we put to one side, that we choose not to think about. And there are things that we train ourselves to think about because they're wholesome and they're good. And as such, the human mind it's got to focus. It's almost like an eyeball in the sense that it's got to focus. You can spend your time in your mind focusing on certain things and choosing not to focus on other things. I've come across in this season people who are disorientated at this time, are disorientated with what's going on. And I'll tell you why I think that is. I think it's because fundamentally, in our minds and in our thinking, every single one of us has this box. That's the best way I can describe it. It's a box. And what this box is, it contains the fundamental things that I believe, the fundamental things that I think about the world in terms of the world and the way that it is. Conclusions I've come to over my 42 years on the face of this planet. And that might contain things like what I think of the BBC. And fundamentally, I think that people are good. Although the government is generally sometimes corrupt, in the main, people are trying to do their best. I think that the NHS is good. I think that in the main, might be Bill Gates is a philanthropist. It might be all manner of different things that medicine is generally good and will keep me healthy, and doctors have a Hippocratic oath and they look after me first and foremost. And that's kind of the things that are in my box, and that is the lens through which I view the universe. So, for example, I will walk down the street and I will come across the street may be metaphorical. I might be on the internet, for example, and I might be coming across a big debate about abortion, for example. What I view about the world and what I hold in this box as my fundamental beliefs in terms of religion, in terms of morality, in terms of how people should behave towards each other, how there's even part of my personality perhaps in there. But this box and what is in that box flavours the way that I look at the world. Now, at 14 years old, I'm going to tell you a little bit about something about myself now. At 14 years old, I don't think a person has got a brain that's developed enough at 14 years old to really have enough experience to have an handle on the world the way that a 30-year-old perhaps would. And some of them do. So that's not in any means me disparaging a 14-year-old. But as a 14-year-old, I was quite forthright in my opinions. I was an atheist. I did a lot of reading. There was no existence of God. God didn't exist. And that flavoured my understanding of where things were and where things sat in the world. Because through that understanding of the fact there is no God, morality is man's decision, man's inhumanity to manage, because people don't live the way that they ought to, and if we all live together in a harmonious way towards pushing towards a greener planet and a better environment for each other, and we're all socially just and we'd all get on nicely and everything would... That's the view that I had of the world at 14 years old. And then I met Jesus and my life changed. And what happens at that point, and what happened to me at that point, is that which was in my box that had a chain round it and a padlock on it and a key that I'd swallowed, because I was so certain, so 100% certain that I got it right, that now was challenged. And what was in that box, it was unlocked and the chain was taken away. And some of the stuff that were in there was altered and moved around, because now, as a Christian, as somebody at the point where I decided to live for Jesus, my life changed in the sense that my opinions on everything else changed. Now, what I mean by that is I went through a process of having to walk through life thinking, right, in light of what I now believe, and there has to be, in everything, variables and constants. So, for example, I get in my car and I may get caught by a speed camera. One of the constants is that my tyres aren't going to drop off and my car's not going to suddenly blow up with me in it. That's a constant. I can trust with reasonable accuracy that there are certain things that are always going to happen. The road is never going to collapse under me, or it's very unlikely that it's going to collapse under me. There are certain things that are constants. My foot on the accelerator and how quickly I go is a variable. Does that make sense? So in regards to my life, my constants and the fact that I now viewed everything in light of what Jesus believes things to be, because he's now my king, he's now my Lord, that changed the way that I view absolutely everything on the road of this life. It changed how I view morality, how I view politics, and it brought me a different understanding of everything, and almost like a different viewpoint. I'd almost like been taken from this particular place here in terms of viewing the valley, and I've been moved somewhere else and had a completely, totally different viewpoint. And it was disorientating, because things I held to be truth, I didn't hold those as true anymore. Things that I held as being lies, I didn't have lies anymore. Now you go on Twitter and you look in this season, and you may have considered yourself what you class as red-pilled or woken up, and you will be disorientated. And the reason for that is you may, a year ago, have thought that unequivocally Donald Trump is one of the worst things that's ever happened to world politics. You may not be in a situation now where you may have flipped, and you might now think it's really important that Donald Trump gets in, because you've actually seen the way that the CNN and the BBC and on the other news channels are constantly feeding us propaganda. You may have seen that. You might not have seen that yet, and you might think that, what's he on about? BBC's the bastion of truth. I don't know. But what I'm saying is those opinions are what is in your box, and they inform how you view everything else in this world. Now, one of the reasons why so many different people are talking about being disorientated is because things are changing so quickly. And quite often we're being asked to do things that conflict with each other. We're having conflicting advice. Like, for example, the government in this country and the governments all around the world have been telling us for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, were telling us that masks had no efficacy in terms of dealing with COVID-19. Then we're in a situation where some weeks later, we're told that we're all to wear masks in some cases, in some countries, public places. In some cases, we're told to wear them in hospitals. In some cases, we're told to wear them in shops. In some cases, we're told the kids are told to wear them in schools. And we're to hand sanitize and not touch anything. Yet we've got boats of refugees coming in, and they're just transported straight to the mainland, and people can fly on holiday and come backwards and forwards, and we're supposed to wear masks and lock down, yet air stewards and air stewardesses are exempt from that. And if you're a nurse or a doctor or a clinician, then you don't have to lock down and you don't have to isolate for 14 days. And the list of exemptions is as long as my leg. It doesn't make sense. And people are experiencing what they call cognitive dissonance. What psychologists will tell you is that refers to a situation involving conflicting attitudes, beliefs or behaviours. And it produces feelings of mental discomfort, leading to an alteration in one of the attitudes or beliefs. So ultimately, you've got conflicting beliefs coming in contact with each other, and you're trying to figure it out, and it's disorientating because there's no balance. Because where you're at now, you're in one of probably 3 or 4 camps as far as I see it. The first camp is, you know something that's not quite right, but you can't work it out, and it's disorientating. And that is because what you're seeing in the world is making what is in your box unworkable. And the reason why it's unworkable is because what you're seeing in the world is presenting you with evidence that is so obviously not right that it's demanding that which is in your box is challenged. And you know what, as a person not knowing what's in that box, you can't function because you don't know what you believe about the world. Some people, I've got people who I know who I've been really close to, who have turned around and says, look, I'm just not thinking about it. I'm just cracking on. And that's one way of dealing with it. But if you're the kind of person that watches a film and you see something, you think, that person's been in something before, but I can't get my head around it. What has that person been in? If you're that kind of person that will spend the rest of the film trying to figure out what they've been in, to the extent where sometimes it will ruin the film for you, this will do your head in. Completely and totally do your head in, because you will want to know what you believe about what is going on in the world. So this cognitive dissonance is where you've not quite made the changes in the box that you need to make to be able to view the world in light of the new information that you've got. The second group of people is people that have made that change, but it ain't quite fitting. People talk about the rabbit hole. They say that, look, there's stuff happening. I know that what I now believe about this, and this, those things I thought were conspiracies and were conspiracy theories, actually, I understand that term has been invented. I understand that Twitter, Facebook and YouTube are being censored really, really heavily. And I understand that there's some form of intelligence behind pushing the things that I know aren't quite right. And you're in a situation where you don't trust, but you don't know where it's all going. You don't know where it's all heading. And as such, although you're in a better place because you're further down the line or further down the rabbit hole, you don't really know where it's all coming out. You don't really know where it's all ending. And that's the second box. And then there's a third box. Now, in fact, there's probably four. And this is the thing. When we come into this lockdown and this whole situation in regards to the COVID-19, it took me 2 days to wake up. And that isn't because I've got some super wonderful brain or anything like that, because I was pootling along, not thinking about certain things and thinking about other things, just getting on with my life much the same as everybody else. But what's different with me and what's different with some people is I had that life-transforming experience of having everything in my box completely and totally transformed at the age of 14. And for me, viewing the world through the light of what I think the Bible says, which is that the God of this world, the God of society, is not the God who rules the universe. Jesus talked about the God of this world. He wasn't talking about his father. He was talking about the devil. He's talking about things that are evil, things that are occult, that, believe it or not, look, do exist. Occultic symbols do have power. They do have relevance. Scientists will tell you, in terms of doing quantum theory and the Hadron Collider and smashing these atoms together, they've come to the conclusion that we exist within three dimensions, but there are 10. We directly interact with those 3 dimensions. The truth of the matter is there are aliens. And the alien data in the United States, for example, since 1950, has always, every single year, every single point, has always been more highly classified at any point throughout history since the 1950s than America's top and most secret warhead. Why is that? Why is that? These things appear, and they appear on multiple radars at the same time. So there are, at the very least, things that we cannot explain. But when we talk about things like aliens, there aren't aliens that come from other planets. There's no intergalactic travelers. They just don't exist, and there is no evidence for them whatsoever. But when we see things and vehicles in the sky that are leaving a signature, that move from one place to another so quickly they defy the laws of physics, there is nothing in this universe that can defy the laws of physics, incidentally, because they're the laws of physics. They're coming from another dimension, and they're coming from one of the other 7 dimensions within which God lives. And they are sometimes malevolent, and they're called demons, and they're sometimes benevolent, and they're called angels. That is the universe. That's how the universe is made up and limited, but there are things beyond that universe we just don't get and we just don't understand. Now, understanding that we are really in a matrix, we're in a digital simulation. Google it and look at what scientists are saying about our universe. They're saying that we are in a digital simulation because the universe is finite in the small, and the universe is finite in the big. The universe comes to an end. Therefore, it's a pocket. It exists, but it doesn't go on forever. There is eternity, the other dimensions outside of that God inhabits. And when you get that and you put that in your box and you understand that we are in a matrix, but it's a matrix created by God. It's called the space-time continuum, and we know it as our universe. And you understand that time, matter and space, time runs in one direction, and when we get to an end, we will come to a point where this spacesuit with our spirit in it, the thing about us that exists in the other universes, that is, we're actually in a spacesuit. Our body is a spacesuit, essentially, that basically tells us to where we're at. And you come to an end, and you meet your maker. And you put that into context and realise that everything I've just said is in some form in the Bible. It's just I'm putting it in some kind of modern scientific language so people can understand that this isn't just some ancient book. That when we look at Ouija boards, people know that things like Ouija boards, for example, open up ourselves to dangerous stuff. We are inviting some of those malevolent beings to be involved in our life. When a person accepts Jesus and becomes a Christian and asks God into their life, we are taking part in that battle, because we are both in the battle and we're also the prize. That is in my box in terms of my understanding of the universe. I'm not disorientated, because not only was what is in my box allowed me to make sense of the universe and realise that in actual fact, with regards to this COVID-19, we are being lied to. And not only that, but the way the world is developing and where we're headed, I don't fully understand the route the rabbit hole is going to take, but I know where that rabbit hole is going to end. And that rabbit hole is going to end in Jesus Christ coming back and wrapping things up and basically closing down the matrix and us existing within the eternity. So understand that if you're kind of woken up, you've got your box has been converted and changed, but something's still missing. Something is still missing. Guys, whoever's watching this, please understand that, it may be for you, in terms of what's in your box, that step too far. It may be that step too far. But in order for you to stop feeling this disorientation and fully get what is not missing, you're going to have to explore what's in that box. And the things you've always held as true, and the things you've always held as fact, when you've looked at everything else, those are going to need to be challenged. Because if you're feeling disorientated and you don't know where it's going, you don't know where it's ending, and it's doing your head in, that is because what is going on in the world is still conflicting with what's in your box. You've not got it right yet. You've not got it right yet. For me, I see what's going on, and there are certain things I'm going to understand and certain things I'm not, but I'm at peace. And the reason I'm at peace is because I know where it's headed. I know where it's headed. It's headed at a point where the Lord Jesus turns back up for his own. And again, there are so many things in this world that you didn't think were true. There are so many things in terms of how you view this world that you didn't think were true. But your red pill is of no value. It's of no value if you don't get this. Because if what I'm saying is right, if what I'm saying is really right, your experience of religion in your life has been formed by the BBC, it's been formed by what you've seen on the telly, it's been formed by propaganda. And if what I'm saying is really right, then the God of the universe is knocking on your door. The God of the universe is knocking on your door and he's asking, are you going to let me in? Please have a look at the video. Just take some time to consider it and just ask the question, God, if you are real, God, if there is a God of the universe, if you are real, come into my life and show yourself to me. And then contact me and we go from there. Thanks ever so much for listening. Please like and subscribe. Please share if you feel it's going to be useful for somebody.